Hello boys and girls, this is Miss Gabby, and today we're going to be looking at words and their antonyms. Now, if you watched my initial video on synonyms, you already know that antonyms are pretty much the opposite. But if not, antonyms are a word that can have another word that means the total opposite. Whereas where synonyms are pretty much words that have other words that mean the same thing. So today what we're going to do is that with these words that you see here, I'm going to show you a word or have you think about what might be its antonym, again, meaning its opposite. And if you would like to follow along with me as we do this today, and the link will be a printout to this activity where you could cut out your own little words and then glue them in these box spaces that you see here on the screen. Feel free to pause the video now, but if not, let's get started. So let's do a little bit of an example here. So let's look at the word long. Well, what's opposite to long? If you're really tall and then you stand next to someone where they would describe them as their antonym, they would be very small, yes. Or you could say short, which is the word that we have for this activity. And just like with our synonyms, we could find multiple words that mean the total opposite of others. Like I said, short, you could have done tiny, or little. They all mean the same thing when it comes to the opposite of long. And I kind of gave it away earlier, but if we were looking at a synonym for long, what might you say would be a word to it? Well, did you catch that I said tall? Well, when you think about someone that's tall, they're really long and they're stretched out. So that could have been an example of a synonym. Alright, and for this next one, I'll just have the word we're looking at appear on the screen. So I have cold. What might be the opposite of cold when you're looking at the available words we have here? Well, it's kind of like winter and summer. If you're really cold, then you're hot. Good job. Let's do another one just like that. So, looks like we have the word neat. Well, if you're really neat and nice, then you must be, by looking at all these words, messy? Yep, you're right. If you're neat, the opposite of that would be that you're messy. And let's do one more word like that. So let's look at the word always. Always. How would you use that in the sentence? Well, the sky is always blue. And then with the opposite of always, you could probably use that word in the same sentence. So by looking at the selections we have left here, is it fast? No, I don't think so. Maybe it's far? No, not either. I don't think that's correct as well. Well, it could be never. So, for instance, you could have said the sky is never not blue. That's another way you could use that. Alright, and as you can see on my screen, I placed 3 words with their connecting antonyms. So I think full goes with under, sink goes with float, and wet goes with empty. Do you think I'm correct? Well, let's look at the first one. So we have full. What does it mean when something's full? Well, if you eat a lot of food, you probably feel like you're stuffed, so you're full. And then what about under? How would under be the opposite of full? Well, let's think about what under means. How would you describe under? Yeah, you could be under a table. If you're in your house right now, you're under a roof. Well, what would be the opposite of under? Well, if you're under a roof, maybe you might be over? Yeah, you could be on top of your roof, over the house. So I don't think under goes with full. I thank you guys for helping me figure that out. So let's move that over to here. All right, and let's look at this next one here, sink or float. Do you think those are antonyms? Well, before you say yes or no real fast, just think about what they mean first. So, what does it mean to sink? Well, if you drop a penny in a volume of water, what's it gonna do? It's gonna sink to the bottom because it's not heavy enough. Choose where if you're in a swimming pool and you're just swimming around, what are you doing? Yep, you're floating. So, is floating the opposite of sink? Well, of course it is. Because you're not sinking all the way to the bottom, you're just chilling right on top. So that one's in the correct place. What about wet and empty? Well, remember, I kind of messed up right here in full. And if we already said full is when you pretty much eat a lot of food, you feel full in your stomach. Or if you're saving up money and you're putting it in a jar and it's all the way to the top, it's full. Well, if you took all that money away in the jar, or if you actually didn't eat all that food, then you would be empty. So, it looks like our box for wet now is empty. Well, before we figure out what word goes there, look at your sample sheet and just examine all of the ones we have left if you're following along. Well, say them out loud. You might have a picture that pops in your head that associates with that word, but what might be the opposite of wet? Well, again, let's use the same thing that we did earlier. Think about what wet means. Well, if you're taking a shower or a bath and you get out, you're going to be all wet. Or if you go swimming and then you get out of the swimming pool, you're going to be wet. You're going to be dripping with water. Well, what do you do to get that water off of you? Well, you probably normally would go get a towel and then use that towel to, dry yourself off. And if that word didn't come quickly for you, that's all right as well. That's why we're practicing here today, so you could get better with your words, figure out their antonyms, their synonyms, and then ultimately making you a better reader and writer. So let's look at this next word, fast. Well, how might you use it in a sentence? For me, if I'm going real fast in a race, I might have a good chance of winning. But if you're going real slow, then I might not have a chance to win. So that would be the antonym to fast. And again with fast, pause the video and just think of a sentence where you could use slow in there. So again, back to my example, if I'm moving fast in a race, I could possibly win. But if I'm moving too slow, I'll probably lose. Let's look at this next example here. Pretty and young. Well, it looks like I'm thinking young is an antonym to pretty. Well, with the other words, let's think about what pretty means. Well, you could say that when you see a little dog or an animal, you think they're really pretty, they're really cute, which cute is a synonym of pretty. Well, normally when you're walking down the street or walking with your parents, you might think your mom's really pretty or your dad's really pretty, or yourself, you're really pretty. So, can you associate that with young? Is young the opposite? Well, maybe a lot of young people are pretty. So if that's the case, then I don't think it's an antonym of it. But with what we have yet left, what would you say is its antonym to young? Well, we have old and far. Well, if you're really young, like let's just say if you're 10, and then if you see someone that's probably in their 60s who isn't at your age, then they're old, correct. And then let's think about what the antonym to pretty is. Well, if something's really pretty, and then you go out trick-or-treating on Halloween, and you see someone in a scary mask with all these wrinkles, and it's bleh, and it just looks really creepy, and it creeps you out. Well, you might say that that mask is pretty ugly. Alright, and we only have one last one here today, so let's look at the word far. Well, what does it mean to be far? Maybe some of you might have family members that live in different states or in different countries even. If they live just even a couple, like 20 minutes away, then you might say that they're far away. But if you have a grandma or some other friend that lives close by and you might call your neighbor, then they live close by. And again, you could have used any other word besides close to mean the same antonym as far. But with that, it looks like we completed our boxes here today. So I really do encourage that you guys print out the activity in the description if you haven't already, so that way you could practice and do this on your own. And at this point, I would like you to pause the video and then think of some alternatives to the words that we have here. It could be either to full, sink, wet, messy, empty, float, dry, neat, any other words that you see on this screen. And maybe think about another antonym that goes along with it, or even a synonym too. But if you find yourself struggling with your synonyms as well, I suggest looking at part 1 of this video where we talk about words and their synonyms. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you later. Bye!